Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Ryan Orr, and on behalf of the Writing and Critical Inquiry program here at UAlbany, and on behalf of the Writing Contest Committee for WCI, I'd like to introduce MacKenzie Brown, the winner of our Personal Inquiry category for the Spring 21 semester with her essay, But We Didn't. MacKenzie, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So to start us off, I think maybe I wonder if you might describe, I guess, your general relationship with writing overall. Was it sort of a love it? Do you hate it? Is it somewhere in between? And maybe how WCI affected this relationship, if at all.
Yeah, so I've always kind of loved writing because when I was really little, when I was in like pre-K, I broke my arm from like pretty much my shoulder until my wrist. So I had to switch to my right hand. So I've always had like terrible handwriting. So as I got older, everyone always was like pretty much told me they couldn't read it. So I was like, well, if people can't read it, like, or have a hard time with it, I might as well make something that they, will want to read, once they get past the original handwriting part. And when I got into writing critical inquiry, I feel like it kind of deepened my love for it because it kind of showed me how to, analyze stories more and not just like take them for their surface value.
Okay. Okay. How did you break your arm so badly, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I fell down the stairs and like I was sick. And so I fell down the stairs and then like my mom came running in and like picked me up and was like, I was like crying. And so my mom brought me to the doctors and everything was just like really messed up. So
Wow.
in a
Wow.
cast for like a year. So
Okay.
I had to kind of switch hands and I was still young enough to where it wasn't like that big of a deal, but my handwriting, I kind of write like a lefty with my right hand.
Right. Sure. It's interesting too that you were able to, even at that young, sort of translate that to, well, I better make my stories pretty good,
Yeah.
so that they pay less attention maybe to the whatever the handwriting, etc. That's cool. Um, do you do much writing for your other classes on your own time while you're here at UAlbany, or?
Well, I mean, most of my writing right now is for my other classes because, I don't really have much free time as a college student.
Mhm.
But like now that all my gen eds are pretty much out of the way, all the writing that I'm doing is like for my classes that I enjoy. So I'm a criminal justice major. So pretty much everything that I write now is like things that I'm interested in, even if it's like, research papers, it's all things that, I want to learn more about and like kind of things I'm passionate about. So
And you feel that makes a difference?
yeah, I mean, I always feel like it's harder to write something like when you have no interest in it. So like that's why it was good to take writing and critical inquiry because you start out with a personal story, so obviously you're going to be interested in it and it kind of gets you comfortable and kind of translates to the other stories as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's certainly, ideally, that's the intention behind it. So your essay tells the story of a car accident you were involved in, but the story begins at least moments after the accident itself, and what is often sort of in narratology called en media res. So was this sort of a conscious narrative choice on your part? Was it discussed in any of your peer reviews and feedback, or is it something that just kind of came naturally to you?
I feel like it kind of came naturally because that's how I kind of process things.
Mm.
Like I try to look at things from like an outside perspective. So it wasn't really about me like processing, what happened to me. It was kind of me assessing how I reacted to the situation, if that makes sense. But I feel like I just kind of, eventually I want to become a lawyer. So I always look at things very analytically and things like that. So that's kind of, where I came from.
It's interesting to hear you say that because, recollecting on the piece, I can get a sense that you are sort of outside, almost not quite bird's eye point of view, but something like that where a separate narrator or entity is showing and telling. It's pretty interesting. Um, you mentioned this just a moment ago that most WCI classes rely on the sequence, right, of three papers kind of built together or built upon one another. The personal inquiry is often the first of these. Was that the case for your essay? And how would you describe where the essay began? Um, yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of like I didn't really know what to choose to begin with because all of like my group mates and my friends and stuff, they wrote about like really deep things. Like my friend wrote about like her seizures. My other friend wrote about like the death of her father. So I was like, okay, so where do I begin with that? And I was like, and I don't really I'm the type of person where I kind of just like to move on from things. So like, me bringing that back up, I was like, okay, well maybe it'll be a good time to like start processing things from like an actual like internal way. So that's kind of why I chose that. But I didn't end up writing about that for the like next two essays because, I kind of felt like it was an opportunity where, you have like the argument, the conversation essay and things like that. That's where I kind of brought my own criminal justice spin into it. And I started talking about uh, like, false confessions and things like that. So that's kind of where I went with that.
Okay, interesting. Um, how might the writing, or how did the writing of But We Didn't change or affirm any perspectives you had or knowledge you had around anxiety and perseverating on past events and those kind of things?
I feel like it kind of made me feel more comfortable with the situation because I kind of just became numb to it in a way because I didn't really want to ever process it. So I was just like, okay, well, this happened. Let's move forward. And, that was that. But when I was writing it, I was like, well, you can't 100% move forward until you actually process it. So like for me, whenever like I go by the road, all of my friends and family know like never take that road. And I actually like after I wrote it, I was driving with one of my friends and I was like, well, maybe we should just like take it like slow and just see, you know, how it was. And I was actually fine with it. I still try to avoid it, but I feel like it kind of helped me make like more peace with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, and there's certainly plenty of scholarship behind expressive and reflective writing being uh, a tool to generate like your the level of processing you're sort of referring to.
Yeah.
Um, so your paper provides an excellent presentation of the ways in which a near miss, in this case, everyone in the car was okay ultimately, um, can still affect people a great deal, right? And it carries over, and like you said just a moment ago, processing even after the fact. So besides reading your work, are there other ways you can think that people can inform themselves about this type of experience, be it a car accident or something else, and how again they might arrive at some effective way to process?
Well, I feel like throughout our lives, we all have at least like one near miss or like one near death situation in our lifetime. So I would just kind of inform people to let themselves like actually, feel it and like analyze it because I didn't. And I feel like if I would have done that sooner, it would have helped me in the long run. And like, just don't try to let your mind move on without processing. Like as much as you may want to and just move on with your life, like it shouldn't like consume your whole life, but you know, you should like although you should be grateful that you survived like some type of thing like this, it doesn't mean that you can't be upset about it and can't still have those feelings.
Yeah, I think that's pretty wise. I mean, it seems like accepting the fact that you are upset is maybe the first step in that process.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, oh, sorry. So a core value of WCI is the building of community in the classroom and among its students. I wondered if you might speak a little bit about your WCI community and your experience there with either your professor or the other students and how that might have factored into the crafting of this essay.
Yeah, so I loved my and critical inquiry class. My professor, Professor Ryan, she was great, and like my peers were great as well. And I feel like Professor Ryan, like she really helped me decide like the best way to present this story. like, for instance, choosing the best details to leave in the story to kind of maintain the emotional impact because, obviously there was many more details from that day that I could have put in there, but, I only really wanted to pick the ones that kind of, made the story feel whole and not like extra. And, overall, I bonded with so many people in my class. And I'm even dorming with one of my group members next semester, which is kind of fun because, like that's how we met in that class. And then we just liked each other so much. So we're all kind of dorming together. So that's kind of fun.
That's great. It's great to hear that those relationships can carry over into other contexts. Um, how did you end up submitting to the contest? Was this encouraged, by, like you said, by Professor Ryan? Was it, did it come about in a different way? And how do you think the submission of the essay might have changed your view of writing or your relationship with this story or really anything involved in that?
Yeah, so Professor Ryan told me to submit this essay. And so I was like, okay, like I will. And then, it came closer to the deadline. I was like, all right. So I just decided to do it. And last semester was my first semester here. So I didn't really like know if my writing had like potential to like win a contest at this, collegiate level.
Mhm.
But, I feel like it inspired me to write more because I realized that you know, am like worthy of competing at a collegiate level with writing. So yeah, and I'm also in the school newspaper now as well. So I feel like that also helped me kind of, take that path.
Wow, so you're doing a fair amount of writing already, or at least continuing. Um,
Yeah.
any advice for prospective or even current WCI students in terms of either the contest or any other way to engage with WCI in the community?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say put your heart into your writing because, that's the only way you're going to write a good essay is if you're actually feeling or, you know, if you're interested in the writing. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable or, use your writing, like the personal essay as a form of like therapy or something, because it does help. And, also I would just say, if you want to just submit your essay because, to the contest because, there's no harm in entering and you might just end up winning like I did. I was like, okay, this is a fun experience. And then I ended up winning and it just makes it that much better.
Wonderful. I think that's a great answer. Um, thanks for talking with us today, Mackenzie.
Thanks for having me.
And congratulations once again on your winning essay, But We Didn't. And you'll be able to find, or you should be able to find her Mackenzie's bio and some excerpts from students who read her work, as well as obviously this interview on our website.